There's a moment at Stonehenge that nobody warns you about. It's not the stones themselves, though they're extraordinary. It's what happens in your body about 30 seconds after you step inside the circle, before the sun has fully risen, when the cold is still sharp and the horizon is just beginning to lighten. Your breath changes. Your shoulders drop. Something in your chest unclenches that you didn't even know was clenched. And then, without any dramatic revelation, you just know. You know that something in your life is ready to begin. You know that waiting has stopped being neutral. You know that the window you've been watching is quietly starting to close. That's the threshold we're naming today. The first stirrings. The moment when change has already decided to arrive, even though nothing on the surface looks different yet. You're listening to the Holy Rebels podcast, Ancient Wisdom for Modern Mystics. I'm Nina Hirlaender, Franciscan sister, spiritual director, and founder of Dancing Spirit Tours. If you're a spiritual seeker or a mystic in the making, you're in the right place. Let's get started. This episode is the first in an 8-part series called The Soul's 8 Thresholds of Transformation. And I need to tell you something important before we start. This year is the final time I'm leading the Celtic Shamanism in England pilgrimage, May 23 to June 2nd, 2026. After 15 years of guiding pilgrims through these sacred landscapes, this turning of the wheel will be the last. So I'm doing something I've never done before. I'm taking you with me before we ever set foot on the land. The next 8 episodes are an audio tasting of what happens on the pilgrimage, and more importantly, what happens in the soul when you say yes to this kind of journey. Each week, I'll give you one threshold the soul crosses when it's ready, one vivid story from a sacred site in England, and one simple practice you can use today so the shift is felt in your body and in your life. The framework we're using is the Celtic Wheel of the Year, a map of inner transformation that the ancient Celts understood deeply. They recognized that the seasons of nature mirror the seasons of your soul, that there are thresholds humans cross when they're ready, moments of purification, balance, harvest, shadow, and release. And here's the thing. Nature teaches these thresholds directly. When you watch the first green shoots push through the frozen February soil, you're witnessing a lesson in courage. The shoot begins in the dark, pushes through resistance, and trusts that the light will meet it halfway. That's exactly what's being asked of you when you're standing at a threshold of the first stirring. To begin while it's still unclear, and trust that clarity will come as you move. This is why I keep bringing pilgrims to sacred landscapes. The land itself becomes a teacher. The stones, the springs, the caves, and coastlines, they're mirrors for what's happening inside you. And when you learn to read what nature is showing you, you start to recognize where you are in your own cycle of transformation. What season your soul is in. What's being asked of you right now. Now, some of you have been with me for years now, and you know that my work is rooted in the Western mystical tradition, I love teaching about the lessons of Teresa of Avila, John of the Cross, Francis and Clare of Assisi, Ignatius of Loyola, Julian of Norwich, and many more. That remains the foundation. But I want to share something personal with you. This audio series means a lot to me because Dancing Spirit Tours is evolving. We're creating new offerings, new ways of bringing this work to people who can't travel, new pathways into the mystical tradition. And all of that change has me standing at my own threshold. Endings and beginnings. Things I need to release and the things I need to step into. So when I say these 8 thresholds are about how to move through change wisely, I'm teaching from inside the experience. And what I've discovered again and again is that nature is the best teacher for navigating transformation. Nature shows you what trust looks like, what good timing looks like, what surrender and emergence actually feel like in the body. What I've come to see more clearly is that the teachings of the mystics and the lessons we learn from the land are one and the same. The land evokes what the body already knows. The mystics give it language, shape, and a path forward. So in this series, you'll hear both. You'll hear what happens at Glastonbury Abbey and at Avebury, the springs and the stones and the caves and the cathedrals. And you'll also hear how the Western mystics help you make sense of what nature is awakening in you. Here's what you'll get today. 1 threshold, 1 story from England, and 1 practice you can use before you go to bed tonight. And here's the question that I want you to hold as we begin. What is the next threshold your life is asking you to cross? What is the next threshold your life is asking you to cross? By the end of this episode, you'll have a clearer sense of whether you're standing at the threshold of first stirrings, that quiet moment when something new is asking for your attention, even though nothing has visibly changed yet. The traditional point on the Celtic Wheel of the Year is called Imbolc. It falls around February 2nd in the Northern Hemisphere. And if you're listening to this on the day it's released, happy Imbolc, it's February 2nd. And you're stepping into this threshold in real time. The word itself comes from Old Irish and it means in the belly, which tells you everything you need to know. This is the threshold of gestation, of something forming before it's visible. What Imbolc represents is purification and the recognition that a new beginning is quietly on its way. In nature, this is the moment when winter still holds the ground, yet the first shoots begin to push through frozen soil. The trees are still bare, the air is still cold, and life has already decided to return. Something underground has sensed the lengthening light and responded. On an inner level, this is when you start to feel that something is shifting, a stirring beneath the surface, a readiness taking shape. So what is this threshold in human life? Well, it's the threshold of realizing that a window is closing and something new is asking for your attention. And here's how you know you're at this Imbolc threshold on a spiritual level. You might feel a subtle restlessness in your chest or in your limbs, a quiet hum beneath the surface, an energy that wants to move. There's a sense that waiting is starting to cost you something, that staying where you are requires more effort than it used to. There's an increased sensitivity to what feels aligned and what feels hollow. Conversations that used to satisfy now leave you wanting more. Routines that used to work now feel too small. There's a pull towards clarity and simplicity, a desire to strip things back to what's essential. And there's a feeling that time matters, a seriousness about how you spend your days, a recognition that your choices are shaping the life you actually are living. If you're nodding right now, then you're probably standing at this threshold. Now, here are the two patterns that I see again and again when people are in this season. Patterns that hold them back. The first pattern is waiting for perfect clarity before taking action. The soul sends signals, the body sends signals, and the mind says, I need more information. And so you do your research and you reflect and you prepare, and the preparation becomes its own holding pattern. The truth is, first stirrings come with a direction, a sense of movement. The full map will reveal itself as you move forward. The second trap people fall into is purifying everything at once. The energy of wanting something different makes you reorganize your closet, or start a new morning routine, or detox your diet. You journal extensively about your values, all of which can serve a purpose. And sometimes what the soul actually needs is one clear direction, one simple choice that creates momentum. The gift that awaits you on the other side of this threshold is exactly that. Momentum. A clean beginning grounded in reality. The relief of finally starting. The energy that comes when something that was stuck begins to flow. Okay, now let me take you to Stonehenge. We arrive before dawn. The air is cold, and the sky is still dark. Our group of pilgrims is quiet, which is unusual. Normally there's a soft chatter on the bus, new friendships forming, questions about logistics. But this morning, something has already settled over us. A kind of reverence before we've even arrived. We walk through the security gate and onto the grass. They remove the ropes for us. We're the only people there. The stones rise in front of us, massive and impossibly old. 5,000 years of human longing pressed into rock. 5,000 years of people standing here at their own inner thresholds, asking for guidance, marking transitions, honoring the turning of the wheel. What most people don't know is that we have private access to Stonehenge. Before the crowds, before the ropes go up, before the tour buses arrive, we get to walk into the center of the circle and stand there as the sun comes up. I've done this many times, and every time the same thing happens. The first few minutes, my mind is busy, taking it in, noticing the texture of the stones, trying to imagine the ancient people who erected these massive monuments, who dragged them hundreds of miles, who aligned them precisely with the movements of the sun. And then something shifts. The body settles before the thoughts do. The breath slows. The jaw unclenches. The presence of the stones start to feel immediate and alive. 5,000 years collapse into this single moment, and you realize you're standing where countless humans have stood before you, at their own thresholds, listening for guidance. I remember one pilgrim, Lisa, a woman in her late 50s, who had spent the last 3 years caring for her aging mother. She told me on the bus that she had lost track of herself, that she'd been so absorbed in caregiving that her own desires, her own direction, had faded into the background. Lisa stood in the center of the stone circle as the first light came up above the heel stone. And she didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there with her eyes closed, breathing. Afterwards, she told me something had become clear, a knowing that her mother's death, whenever it came, would be a passage into a new chapter for her own life. That there was something waiting for her on the other side of this season, and that she could acknowledge that now without guilt. That she could let herself want a future again. That's what Imbolc feels like when it lands in the body. A recognition that change has already begun. You finally give yourself the permission you yearn for. This is usually where people realize they already know what the next step is. They've known for a while. And finally, standing in a circle of stones that have witnessed 5,000 years of human thresholds, they give themselves permission to take it. If you're feeling pulled to the last ever Celtic shamanism pilgrimage, the dates are May 23 to June 2nd, and the link is in the show notes. Now let's talk about what the body knows at this threshold. When you're standing at the first stirrings, there are specific signs and signals that your system sends, subtle ones, the kind that merit your attention. A low hum of energy that wants to move somewhere. Your body registers the gap between what you're saying and what you're feeling. There's a pull towards silence and simplicity, a desire to strip away the noise and create spaciousness. There's a heightened awareness of time, a recognition that your life is moving, that your choices are accumulating into a story, and that the story is the one you're actually living. If you're feeling any of these things, these are signs that your soul is ready to begin again, that a new chapter is emerging. Your system is orienting towards something that wants to begin. The next right move for you is usually something very small. One micro action that makes space for what's trying to grow in you. Now let's bring in the mystics. I want to tell you something about how this series came to be. When I first started teaching Celtic shamanism, the focus was on the energies, the 8 points of the Wheel of the Year, the seasonal correspondences, the traditional Celtic practices. And what I found again and again is that pilgrims would ask me, "This is all great, but what does Imbolc mean for me? How is this relevant to my actual lived experience?" The energies can feel theoretical, abstract, hard to apply when you're sitting at your kitchen table trying to figure out whether to have a difficult conversation or whether to apply for a new job. That's why I started to weave in the mystics, because the mystics show you what it looks like to embody these thresholds. They give us flesh and blood examples of what it means to stand at the moment of the first stirrings of Imbolc and actually move into momentum. They make the abstract concrete. They enliven the energy with lived experience. So here's what the land evokes at Stonehenge. The first light arrives before the day looks different. The sun has technically risen, the horizon is brightening, but the world still looks like night. Change has begun before there's visible proof. There's a mystic who gives this idea form, and her name is Teresa of Avila. For those of you who don't know Teresa, she was a 16th century Spanish mystic, a Carmelite nun who lived in a time when women were expected to remain silent and obedient. She wrote, she taught, she led, she founded 17 convents across Spain. She authored some of the most influential texts in Christian mysticism. And she did it all while navigating chronic illness, church opposition, and the Spanish Inquisition. What I love so much about Teresa is her practicality. She was impatient with spiritual drama. She wanted mysticism to be something that changes how you actually live. She once said, "God, save us from sour-faced saints." She had a sense of humor about the whole endeavor of spirituality. In her famous book, The Interior Castle, Teresa describes the soul's journey as a movement towards and through the 7 mansions of the soul, each mansion deeper and closer to union with God, who is in the inmost mansion of the soul. Think of it as a map of spiritual maturity. The outer mansions are where we begin, often distracted and fragmented. And then the inner mansions, as we grow closer to God, as we mature in our growth, the inner mansions are where real intimacy unfolds. And the journey inward is the journey of a lifetime. The first mansions begin with humility and self-knowledge, a quiet entry into prayer where the soul becomes truthful with itself. This is what Teresa calls the foundation of everything. The willingness to see yourself clearly in divine light, to see yourself lovingly as a child of this universe, held and known. Purification, in Teresa's framework, is about letting the false layers drop so divine intimacy can actually happen. When you release the stories that have kept you small or defended or performing, you come to know yourself more truly. And that self-knowledge feels like relief, like setting down a weight you'd been carrying so long you forgot it was there. Think about what this means for your life. When you overfunction, when you stay constantly busy and productive and useful, there's often a quieter truth underneath that activity. A question you haven't made space to ask. A knowing you haven't made space to hear. Slowing down can feel threatening because it creates room for truth to rise to the surface, and maybe it's a truth you don't want to hear. When you try to fix yourself with another book or another practice or another refinement of your understanding, there's often one simple thing that actually needs to change. One decision that keeps getting postponed. A conversation that's being avoided. The self-improvement can become a way to stay busy so that you don't have to face that one thing directly. When you wait until you feel ready before you begin, you're often waiting for a certainty that only comes through action. Readiness is something you build by moving, by trying, by starting imperfectly and adjusting as you go. What humility looks like in practice is naming what is true. Saying, this is what is real in me right now. This is where I am. This is what I'm feeling. This is what I want. Saying it simply, clearly, without drama and without apology. Teresa gives us a beautiful prayer for this Imbolc threshold. You may have heard it before, but hear it again now, as if it were written just for you, for this exact moment in your life. Let nothing disturb you. Let nothing frighten you. All things are passing. God never changes. Patience obtains all things. Whoever has God lacks nothing. God alone suffices. Amen. So this prayer is your anchor for this week. When restlessness rises, when you're tempted to over-prepare, when you wonder if you're ready, let nothing disturb you. God alone suffices. Now here's your practice for today. And this is designed to fit the Imbolc threshold because it creates a clean inner starting point. It takes about 5 minutes. No matter how busy you are, you can do this. Step 1. Sit somewhere quiet and notice your breath. Notice your shoulders, your back, your hands. Just notice what's there in your body. And step 2, ask yourself this question. What is true in me right now? What is true in me right now? Name 3 facts, simple, observable facts. For example, I haven't slept well in 3 days. I've been avoiding a conversation with my sister. I feel more alive when I'm outside. Just name the facts. Step 3. Ask yourself this question. What is one thing I am avoiding? What is one thing I am avoiding? Again, name it simply. Just name it. You're doing your best. The naming itself is the beginning of movement. Step 4. Choose one small action that aligns with truth. This could be sending an email you've been sitting on. It could be telling someone you need space. It could be blocking 30 minutes on your calendar for something that matters to you. It could be saying no to something you've been half-heartedly agreeing to. Pick something you can actually do, something small, but significant enough to matter. Step 5. Close with this prayer. God, meet me in what is real. Amen. That's it. One honest step to be more in touch with what's going on for you right now and what wants to move. One of the most important things that I've learned about building a relationship with God is that it happens through listening. Listening to my own heart. Because that's one of the primary ways that God speaks to us, through the quiet knowing that arises when you're quiet enough to hear it. So when I ask you the following questions, I'm inviting you to listen. Notice what stirs in you. Pay attention to where your body responds. That's guidance. Where in your life do you feel that quiet sense that something is ready to shift? Maybe it's a relationship that needs a conversation you've been carrying inside. Maybe it's a creative project that keeps nudging you, asking for your attention. Maybe it's a decision about work, about where you live, or about how you spend your time. Or maybe it's something even more internal, a way of being with yourself that's ready to evolve. Here's what I've learned. When you name what's true, energy that was stuck starts to flow. Clarity that was waiting starts to arrive. The naming itself, the awareness itself creates movement. That's why we talk so much about honesty in the spiritual life. Honesty with yourself is how things start to change and become rightly ordered within you. A clean beginning usually starts with one honest choice, one clear step. There are seasons in my own life that I can think of where I kept preparing because preparing felt productive. I'd reorganize my notes, refine my plan, consult my mentor, read another book. And what finally changed things was a simple mantra that became a kind of prayer for me. I give myself permission to start before I feel ready. You can say that to yourself if you like. I give myself permission to start before I feel ready. It's so relieving, isn't it? I finally gathered the courage to take one small step towards something that wanted to begin. And the clarity that I'd been waiting for, it came after I started. The action itself created the clarity. That's how the first stirrings work. That's what Imbolc is all about. The light comes and then you see the path. Okay, so here's what's coming next. Today we named the Imbolc threshold, that quiet moment when a window is closing and you can feel a new beginning stirring before anything looks different on the outside. We stepped into Stonehenge at sunrise and we practiced a 5 step truth check so that you can take one honest step towards the life you're meant to live. Next week, we're moving into the second threshold on the Celtic Wheel of the year, the energy of the spring equinox. We won't be publishing on the actual equinox, but we're following the inner seasons, which is what matters. The spring equinox brings us face to face with something that many of us carry longer than we need to. The weight of things that haven't been completed. Things that are ready to end but haven't been fully released. You'll learn what it means to choose an ending intentionally so that your energy can move forward. I'll take you to one of the most powerful sites on the pilgrimage, and we'll work with a mystic who understood that completion opens the door to what's next. Now, I want to invite you into something. This is the final time I'm leading the Celtic Shamanism in England journey. It happens May 23 to June 2nd, 2026. After this, it closes for good. If these stories are waking something up in you, pay attention. That is your soul speaking. This journey is for people who want a grounded encounter with nature, the land, embodied practice, and real inner movement. It's for people who are ready to cross a threshold that they've been circling for too long. It's for mystics in the making, people who want to be changed by what they experience. If you're someone who collects spiritual experiences like stamps in a passport, then this is not your journey. And I say that with a smile because I understand the impulse. But this pilgrimage is designed for depth. And depth requires showing up ready to be worked on by the energies of the land. If you're feeling the pull, go to the link in the show notes. You can reserve your spot, or you can book a call with me to get your questions answered. Spots are very limited, and this is the last year we run this sacred journey. So if this pilgrimage has been on your bucket list, step through the window while it's open. That's what Imbolc teaches. Windows open, and then they close. So let me leave you with this. What is your life asking you to face right now? And what would it feel like to finally begin? This is the first threshold, first stirrings of Imbolc, the recognition that change has already decided to arrive. May you trust what is waking up in you. May you give yourself permission to start. May you take one honest step today towards what wants to grow in you. And above all, trust the mystic within you. I'll see you next week.